Hello, ladies of You Outside of the Box. Oh my goodness, we are in week 2 of this amazing 30-day event that Ashley was able to put on for us. And so I'm so glad that each of you all are here. If you're here watching the replay, just to hashtag replay down below. So then that way we know that we can come back and follow up and see what maybe you've missed or answer any questions that you have. If you're hopping on live now, welcome. So glad that you're here. Type hello, your name. Sometimes it just says Facebook user on my side and I don't get to see your name. If you'd like to see your name, if not, that's fine. And where are you coming in from? So are you in the States? Are you abroad? Where are you at? That way we can kind of get to know everybody in this beautiful community that Ashley has created for all of us. So welcome and thank you for being on. My name is Holly Hartman and I am a certified life transformation and dating and relationship coach. And just a little bit about myself. Hello, welcome from Ohio. And so a little bit about myself. I am a single mom with 2 boys. My boys are 7 and 17. And so you're probably thinking, and my oldest turns 18 in November. Oh my gosh. I'm 44 years old. I live in Indiana, right outside of Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome. And so I have been married twice. You probably see that big age gap, 10 and a half years. You're like, oh my gosh. I have been married twice and both my marriages were not healthy. And I experienced emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, physical, and not the sense of what you would consider domestic violence and what you might see on the TV, but in ways of like using ice cold hands and sexual abuse and things like that. So I am a survivor thriver of domestic abuse and covert abuse and hidden abuse. So I also know that a lot of women, I see a lot of the women that I help that are starting out on dating and scared to date, a lot of them are survivors or codependent. And we have these things that we bring into relationships. And so that's a lot of what I do is help people heal before they get into a relationship. But today, what I get to talk, and hello, everybody that's here. Thank you for being here. What I would really love is for you all to participate with me. And so what I would like to know is who here is single or dating or married. All are welcome here because I think that, well, we all know single people, even if we're married, and this might be valuable information, but also what I'm going to be teaching today might be something that you do for you, even if you're in a marriage, because I believe that when we show up as our healthiest, best version of ourselves, we show up best in all of our relationships. So it doesn't matter where you're at right now. We welcome you. Okay. Oh, dating yourself. Love that. Yes. And I will be talking about that too. So today my title is Dating Outside of the Box. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Right. And right now, like a lot of who I help are people that have gone through relationships and they have left toxic relationships and now they're back out in the dating world. And some people have never even dated before. Maybe they married their high school sweetheart and they've been married for 20 years. And then now they find themselves single again. And this climate is like, wow, it can be really scary. And there's so much negativity and noise out there that we can get caught up in that. Thank you all for sharing where you're at. Really appreciate that. That helps me kind of know how I can gauge this conversation with you all. But something to note is that there's this, I don't know, it can be confusing, the statement where people say you need to heal before you get into a relationship. And you need to love yourself fully before. Now, those are messages that I've said before too, but there are this little asterisk that I'd like to also put out that yes, it is so important that we do our own healing work, that we are intentional with that. And I think last week I might have mentioned a little bit about solo date challenge, and that was my own healing journey. I learned how to love myself through solo dating. So I have a lot of single women that follow me and even single men that follow me that really implement that rule of solo date challenge, dating myself, finding who I am, what I love, what brings me joy. So when I show up in a relationship, I show up as my best self. But the reality is we are never done healing. So if we go by that rule of you have to be fully healed before you date, before you get into a relationship, none of us would ever date. None of us would ever go out. None of us wouldn't find a mate, because the reality is that the healing journey is not linear. However, if we're hopping from one relationship to the next and we don't give ourselves time to heal and we don't show up as our best selves, we're just repeating the pattern. And that's where I woke up. That's where I was 3 years ago, when I was at the end of my marriage and I realized that I had been repeating a pattern, and it wasn't a pattern that I wanted anymore. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm actually going to break this down, because what I also believe is that we grow and heal through relationships. I know a lot of people are really scared to get in a relationship, and then some are just like, I'm really actually happy without it. And if that is you, I celebrate you, right? There is no shame in that. If you are happy being single, embrace that. This is not a box that I'm saying everybody should be in a relationship, everybody should date. That's not it. But we're going to talk about the people that do want to know what that looks like, right? So relationships are for us. But if we've been through abuse and toxic relationships, or ones that just didn't work, or codependent relationships, sometimes relationships don't feel good, right? We're like, no, I don't want any part of that. But actually, we can grow through relationships and heal through relationships. When we read these books and all these guides and things like that, we can learn the concepts, but until we actually apply them in our relationships, and that doesn't necessarily mean romantic, it could be with your family, it could be with coworkers, with friendships, and all of that. So all these things are good for healing, no matter what relationship you're looking for, right? But we grow through it. So today I'm going to talk about growth. I'm going to do a little acronym of growth. So we're going to start with G, and we're talking about outside of the box dating, G. So we're going to go from ground hogging to grounding. Has anybody heard the term ground hogging before in regards to dating? It was kind of a newer term for me. If you've heard of it, like say me, I've heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, have you heard of the movie Groundhog Day? Now, if you're in the States, I would say, unless you live underneath a rock, you probably heard of Groundhog Day. And that movie is an old movie from like the 80s, 90s, something like that, where the news reporter wakes up every day and every day is the same. And so if you're looking back on your past dating history, you've never heard of the movie? Oh my gosh. Oh, yes, to the movie, Groundhog, yes. So if you think about past relationships, and this is what I would do, is I had a type. Can you think about, like, when you're looking, if you're out on the dating sites or whatever, and you have like this certain type and you go on this dates, ask yourself, is that working for you? Right? Maybe you've always gone after the bad boy. Maybe you always gone after the nerds. Maybe it's the jock. Like, have you always had a type? And if you've always had a type and you have a pattern and it's not working for you, that's called ground hogging, right? So then my question and my encouragement is to go into grounding. And what I mean by grounding and dating is, have you done your own healing work? Are you centered in what your core values are? Do you know what you really want? Do you know what your non-negotiables are, right? Oh, I love that. My type has been the one that's showing me attention. Yes, I have been that person so many times and felt guilty. I love that you wrote that. I'll touch on that because that has been a big part. I'm a recovering codependent, recovering people pleaser, recovering validation seeker. We talked about that last week, right? So we're more susceptible to, oh, they like me, I guess I'll like them, until I don't, until I realize that they're not the person for me because I didn't really line up with what my core values are. I really didn't look at what are my non-negotiables. I really settled for less than what I was actually needing in a partner in a healthy relationship. And that's often how we get caught in these toxic cycles, because we settle for things that are less than what we deserve. And so core values, if you've not discovered your core values before, write them down below. If you know your core values, write them down there. My type is just like my dad. Yeah, okay, we're going to get into that too. Thank you for being transparent with that. So first, we're going to look at what our core values are, and I have a worksheet on that. I can post that in our group a little bit later on, and so you can discover your core values. I'll just share with you. Mine are connection, Service, creativity, freedom, and growth. Those are my top core values. And so what I need, oh, I love that you're putting down there freedom, faith, and love. Yes. So that's a great compass and a great barometer for us to go, okay, am I living in my authentic self? It's a way to go, okay, do my values line up? They don't have to be exactly what our values are. They don't have to be identical, but do they compete with each other? Like if you have strong religious beliefs and this person is agnostic or atheist and has no beliefs whatsoever, that may be a conflict that you may not be resolved and may not be able to be resolved. Or they might be so like a workaholic and driven, and yours is connection, and their values are different, right? So we really kind of need to look at what those are, and they're not going to write that necessarily out on their page, but you can start to be more observant of what that looks like. Kind of, you might play a little game with yourself and go, let me guess what their values are. Now, we're not going to make assumptions, but you can ask questions later on to what these are. Oh, I love so much that you guys know your values already. Yay, yay, yay. That's a huge first step in getting grounded in who you are. So I also have a worksheet that I'm creating that I'll drop in the group. And this little exercise is really great for you to look at past relationships. If you're not looking at what didn't work and what you want to attract, then you again might be in this like just throwing spaghetti up against a wall and just waiting for something to stick. But that's not necessarily how we build a healthy relationship. Now, does it work for some? Yeah. I mean, some people are just super lucky in that way. But if we're being intentional about what we're looking for, we can filter fast and we don't waste our time, right? So I love that everybody's doing that. Yay, 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 yay for core values. That's like one of the first thing I teach. Like it's so important. So it's really important to get grounded on who I am. What do I desire? What are my non-negotiables? What are the things that I love about myself? What are the things that I can bring into a relationship? We really need to get grounded in all of that first. What am I looking for? So on a sheet of paper, what I'd love for you to do is write on one side relationships. And then so on one side, I want you to write out all the things that didn't work in past relationships. And it's okay to just do, like last week I talked about the brain dump or the brain release exercise. Do 5 minutes. All the things that didn't work. It could be that he snored. It could be that he was not financially stable, or however you showed up or however they showed up in the relationship that was not working. And then on the other side, so you're going to draw like a line. What's the opposite of that? What's the positive of that? So maybe someone that, the last person was an addict. So then on the other side, it'd be like somebody that's healthy, doesn't do drugs or alcohol or things like that. So you would look at what's the opposite of that. So then we're going to start building a list. And then this isn't like that list of like, okay, you have to be exactly this 100%, because we also don't want to pigeonhole and not be open. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So groundhogging to grounding. We got to get grounded in who we are. So we aren't the people that are just going for the people that like us, and that's it. Like that should not be the only factor here. So now we're going to talk about the R in growth. And this is a big factor from keeping people, you were just journaling about. So we're already in sync. I love the divine timing of everybody here, and that you're already prepared for this talk today. Like, yes, love it. So we're going to talk about the R in growth, and that is rejection, which is what holds a lot of us back from even getting online or putting ourselves out there. That deep fear, especially if we have been brought up in toxic homes, we have childhood trauma that's not completely healed, or past trauma from relationships, rejection, or maybe ADHD. That's a big topic right now, talking about rejection sensitivity. I get it, but we have to reframe it if we're going to get from that wall that we have built in front of ourselves to blockade us from being able to make connections with somebody else, if in fact we desire a relationship. So we have to reframe it. And I see a lot of the people that follow me will share stories, and I feel them where we're like, but it's this language of this really all or nothing language. And I really try to encourage people where they say, all men are this, all dating sites are this, every time this. Well, I encourage you to maybe reframe that, because what we're doing there is we're looking for confirmation bias. And you will find exactly what you're looking for. If you're saying all there are toxic men out there, that is what you'll find. If you say all the online stuff sucks and there's no way I can do it, that is what you'll find. If you keep saying these things to yourself out loud and out into the world, into the universe, you will bring more of that to you. And that's not what you want, right? Like if you really want a healthy relationship, but we will block it because we have this fear of rejection before we even get started. So we can reframe that rejection and rethink it. And we can look at it as a place like, have you heard the Garth Brooks song, Thank God for Unanswered Prayers, right? So when we get rejected, which is what it feels like, if you could reframe it in gratitude, now depending on how it is, like if somebody's being an asshole, that's a whole different thing. But if somebody didn't click like, you might internalize that as a rejection, or you sent them a message and they didn't send it back. You might, starting off, it can feel really icky, and it's easy to go, oh, men are toxic. Well, the reality, if you've not, I don't know, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but has anybody read the book, The 4 Agreements? I love the 4 Agreements, especially when dating. So if you are wanting to start dating and you have read this book, bring it back out. It's a small book. And who else read the 4 Agreements? If you've read it, bring it down. So reread this in the mindset of dating, because the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word. So when I talk about, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but how many of us have been ghosted before? I know I have, but I don't take it personally anymore. I'm like, that's their shit. That's not mine. Whatever. I've been ghosted in business. I've been ghosted from family. I've been ghosted from friends. I've been ghosted, whatever. But I reframe it of like, they have lives too. I'm not going to internalize that. So be impeccable with your word. That also if I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up when I say I am, right? And I'm going to be clear and kind with my communication. But the next one is, don't take anything personally. Oh my gosh. Like if we could all live that rule when we feel like we're being rejected, because oftentimes we're creating stories. We don't know all the stories. We will create stories and make the rejection feel worse. It's like, how are you framing that rejection? And then we don't make assumptions. Again, we're creating stories. Most of the time, we are creating stories. So challenge yourself. If you're feeling that rejection and you're like, oh my gosh, they didn't do X, Y, Z, all these expectations I have of them before you even really got to know somebody. And then always do your best. It hurts. It absolutely hurts. However, if we can start to reframe it and try to shift it, and then also some of it is our people picking. And some of it is allowing ourselves to look at it, looking at the list and going, okay, if there are already red flags and yellow flags in their profile, even if they're reaching out to me, I owe them no obligation at all to respond, especially on an online site. You're not ghosting by not responding. You're honoring your energy there. And it is okay to respond or not respond. Ghosting is more like further down the line when you've made some connection and then you just kind of like fall off, or you've gone out on several dates and you don't respond back. That's different. But a lot of people will call ghosting when they've had a couple of messages online. That's not ghosting. That's just not interested. They know they don't owe you anything and you don't owe them anything at that point, if you haven't even met in person yet. So those are some different ways that we can kind of reframe it and look at it as a place of gratitude. Thank you for filtering yourself out, because you are not my divine partner. You are not the person that's supposed to be in my life. So thank you for not wasting my time. I know it hurts right now, but thank you for filtering yourself out, because ultimately that is not the person you want in your life. And they're just a distraction. I know it's uncomfortable at the time, but if we can start to reframe it and be in gratitude of like, thank you, God, for not answering that prayer. I probably dodged a bullet there. It's really hard. Struggle to not respond to certain men because you don't want to make them feel bad. You're in no obligation. Or you can have just a blanket thing and where you just say, thank you, I really appreciate it. And I wish you the best. You can be kind and you can be clear. Where we struggle with a lot of these boundaries is that we are not clear and kind. We want to be so nice that we're not clear, and then we lead them on. And then yes, absolutely, we can make them feel bad. But the reality is we're not making them feel bad. That's their own emotion. And we don't need to take that on, but we can be clear, we can be kind, and we can be efficient with what we're saying. But absolutely. Yeah. Gratitude is like the highest frequency there. So like if you can get there, you will move through the healing much quicker, and it won't hold you back from the possibilities and the blessings that are coming your way. So we're going to go into the next one. The O is from overwhelmed to opportunity. And I saw some of these questions coming up. So I hear a lot of the people that I talk to, they're overwhelmed with online dating. Some won't even get on it yet because they hear such horror stories that everything is terrible. Or when they do get on, it can be overwhelming, especially as a woman on there. You might get 100 messages at once, and then you feel guilty for not responding. And then all of a sudden, it feels like a full-time job, right? So we're going to go from overwhelmed to opportunity. We're going to shift our focus to go, okay, so there are better dating sites than others. Some you have to pay for, some you don't. Some have free opportunity, and then some have little pay where you get a little bit of extra benefits on it. And I'll just be transparent. I have been dating somebody for 4 months, healthiest relationship I've ever had. He shows up as a true partner, and I met him on Bumble. And I will share that I have been single for an entire year. I was in a relationship for a year, and there were times where I would have 7 dates on a weekend. Now, some are like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous, or that's offensive, or whatever your thoughts might come with that. I call that rotationally dating. For me, that was the healthiest thing I could do because I am more likely to be codependent. I can fall in love quickly. I can see things that are not actually true and create stories if I'm not careful. So when I'm dating multiple people at once, and I'm honest with them, until we are in a committed relationship, it's dating. And that's where a lot of people get mixed up. They think, oh, I'm talking to them online, and because I'm talking to them, now they have authority. We have some type of unspoken commitment. No, until you have that commitment talk, you are not in a committed relationship, and you're in no obligation. It's good to be clear and kind and transparent, but they're doing it too. And this isn't about tit for tat. This is about you showing up for you and what's healthy, right? So when you rotationally date, you actually get to observe. And we're going to get into that a little bit more when we talk into wounded and witness. So, but from overwhelmed to opportunity. So we're going to reframe that a little bit too, right? So overwhelmed, look at okay, if you're overwhelmed with the concept of online dating, choose one site and set your own boundaries around it. Like, I'm only going to check it for 30 minutes in the morning or 30 minutes at night. I'm going to only check it these times because that's what I'm going to do. Some people also need to have those parameters for themselves because it can become addictive. You can be like, oh my gosh, I have all these messages and I feel good. And it's not there to just make you feel good and to have all this attention, validation thing. Like, what is your intention on being in there? Some people want to stay pen pals forever. That is not my encouragement. And my advice to people is within the first 2 weeks, get out on a date, see them in person. Now, if you're traveling, I know we have some people that are abroad, and that's just not simple. That's just not possible. So then, this may not work for you in that circumstance, but then get on a video chat, get on a phone call if you don't feel comfortable meeting in person first. Now, obviously we got to do safety, first, make sure that you're doing safety protocols. I can post some of those in there as well. 7 dates in one weekend and so I'll be transparent too. I stack them on weekends that I don't have my son, because I do alternate every other weekend with my son. So that's why I'll have 7 dates in one weekend is okay, it's every other weekend. Boom, I knock it out in one time. Or you stack it if you have to pay a babysitter, or you go from overwhelmed to opportunity. That could be you swap with another single mom. Every other weekend, our kids are going to play together, and we set up our dates on Saturdays or Friday night, or make one date night that you have where you do a swap with somebody. There's lots of different ways that we can be strategic in it. It's oftentimes we'll find these blocks, and what I call a reason is an excuse wrapped up in a lie sometimes, right? we all have circumstances. And so I'm not like putting it out there by any means, but there are lots of different ways. Like I look at Parents Night Out at the YMCA, they do those. My son's camp does Parents Night Out. There's lots of different ways that you can do this, right? Swap with a neighbor, do work for somebody else, whatever. Like we have to be creative sometimes to make these things work, right? Like honestly, I haven't paid for a sitter and I don't know how long. So, but we have to be open. A lot of times we'll block these ideas like, nope, not possible, done, never. And that's where we have to start to reframe this and think outside of the box. The whole idea of this, right? Like I'm going to push you and challenge you here, because if you don't want to be single the rest of your life, there are different things we have to do. So, but overwhelmed to opportunity. What are other ways? Online is not the only opportunity. Now, I was posting in a singles group not too long ago, and I posted the question, and I just said, if you were out at a grocery store and you found somebody attractive and they didn't have a wedding ring on, would you approach them? 99% of the people said no. The men were like, no, I'm scared to approach women. And then the women were like, I wouldn't want them to approach me. Well, I do believe that's kind of the sign of the times that we're in, especially after COVID. People don't know how to communicate, right? Now, that's not reality all the time, but like we have to reframe this and be open and say, okay, how am I showing up when I'm out and about? And this lady was like, well, should I dress up to go to the grocery store? And my challenge to that is, I do. I want to show up as my best. I don't know who I'm going to see out. I do, because I'm intentional. I want to be out there. Like, what do I want? I want to be open to receiving. I don't want to be blocking the blessing. And what I do know for me in my experience is that when I'm open to receiving from anywhere, I'm not blocking those opportunities. And I saw more even online connections happening. I'm sending out a universal energy out that I'm open to receiving connection. How are you showing up when you go out? Now, I'll share another story. And I think men are scared. And so just so you know, I have a course that I'm going to be working with men here at the end of this month, because I think it goes both ways, right? Like there are a lot of healthy men that just don't know how to navigate this. And so I'm doing both, right? But overwhelmed to opportunity. I would like to encourage you after this session or during this session to start to brainstorm the things you enjoy doing. So do you like to hike? Do you like to travel? Do you like tennis? Do you like art? Do you like music? Do you like board games or D&D or role play? What do you like to do? Start making a list of that. Those are opportunities. Start making new friends. So many people meet through mutual friends. If you are at home and you're not out connecting with people, you're missing opportunities to meet other people. Now, will they be there at that event? Maybe not. Look, like I'm hosting a singles event here in Louisville for ages 30 to 40 here in 2 weeks. Here in Louisville, look for speed dating events, look for small groups within a church organization, look for hiking groups, look, meetup.com has a lot of like specialty, like if you have a specific thing you like, if you like meditation and Reiki, there are men going to these places too, right? So we have to be out and be open to receiving, especially if you're like, there's no way I'm going to be doing online dating. I get it. A lot of people don't want to do it. Then you have to be open to other opportunities. And so those are some of the things that you might want to think of. Okay. So I'm also going to share this. During COVID, I had a gentleman that was sending me messages on Messenger, and I couldn't tell what his intentions were, but I could tell that he was a nice man. And so I said, hey, are you open to constructive criticism? And he was like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, well, let's hop on the phone call. So I'm talking to him, and I very quickly realized he has some codependent tendencies. He's sharing about the patterns in his relationships. And I said, okay, so what do you like to do? And I said, quit doing what you're doing now because it's not working. How can you show up as your best self? And what do you like doing? And he was like, oh, I like to hike. Awesome. Fantastic. I'm hiking right now. He was hiking. We were talking on the phone, hiking at the same time, connecting. And I said, okay, well, why don't you start a Facebook group so you can connect with other people that like to hike? He's like, well, I don't know how to do that. I said, okay, I'll create it for you. So I created a tri-state hiking group. It covers Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. This was in the middle of the summer during COVID. We now have almost 17,000 people in that group. He has been in a relationship for over a year and a half, who he met in the group. There have been 4 marriages that I know of now from people that have met in my group, and multiple other relationships. And if nothing else, lots of friendships, people that are doing things and doing life together in the middle of that. And that's how the group started. Yes. So we don't know. So if you don't have that group, create a group. Make it happen. We have to think outside of the box, especially if you don't want to do online dating. What can you do? How can you connect? What can you make or create? Connect. How can we do that? Right? And it's been so amazing to watch. All right. So we're going to go from wounded to witness. So we're back. We're in the W. So wounded. Many of us are wounded. Many of us are scared, whether it's from our past, our family dynamics, or because we've been traumatized through a relationship or whatever it is, right? A lot of us are wounded. Many of us have done our healing work, and that's why a lot of us are here, right? And teaching what we teach. So my encouragement is to come from a place of not from your woundedness, but when you're dating, come from a place of witnessing and observing and not taking things personally, just like the four agreements. So when we can look at things and go, okay, challenge yourself and go, am I creating a story around this? Can I just observe behavior? And that's why I love rotationally dating, because it helps me to observe behavior and I can compare behavior. And I'm not there to like compare people. I'm also needing to look at behavior over time, because a pattern is not a pattern until it's over time. If they do it one time, now if it's a straight up red flag, get the heck out of Dodge. You don't have to wait. You don't owe obligations, safety first, all of that. Absolutely. But there might be yellow flags that you're like, something in my body. So tap into your body, witness what you feel around these people, right? So when we're in our feminine energy, and we all have feminine, masculine energy, but when we're in our feminine energy, we're in our being, we're in our feeling. So when you get to go on these dates, stop and ask your body what it feels like. Tap into that. And also question, is this my past trauma being triggered, or is this person? Really try to tap into that. So we're going from being wounded to witnessing. And this is witnessing without judgment. We're going to observe. Now, there's a great book called, hold on. I'll talk about a few of these books. I'm a big on resources, right? So this book called How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk is a fantastic book. Attached, if you've not seen this, is an amazing book. Attached talks about attachment theory. So if you don't know what your attachment style is, you may consider researching that, because that might also help you tap into what you're feeling in your body. I don't know if I've mentioned or not, but I am an international best-selling author on a book called I Am: How to Release the Shame of Narcissistic Abuse and Transform Financial Poverty about Wealth Beyond Numbers. And so there's 14 different ways, modalities to help you heal, so you go from wounded to witness. And so those books are great resources, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. When we're talking about healing and our woundedness, and I'll go a little further into it, but I don't know if anybody has ever heard of, you may have experienced the 12 steps. Last time I shared with you, I have 13 years in recovery. I have done AA, Al-Anon, Celebrate Recovery, ACA, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, and 12-step spiritual recovery. So a lot of 12-step work. I've done a lot of work and a lot of therapy, a lot of counseling. Like, there's so many ways we can heal. But I love this workbook. This is the ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. Most of us have probably experienced dysfunctional families, whether they're alcoholics, whether they're porn addicts, whether they're gamblers, whether they're gluttonous, whatever, doesn't matter. Most people are numbing out on something right now. So this book helps you look at what your family dynamics and your patterns are, and then heal them. But it's a great workbook that you can work with your sponsor or do online meetings for free. It's a free resource. I mean, this costs like $10, $12, something like that. But you could do it on your own. It's amazing. It's a great resource. I highly recommend it for us to heal. If we find ourselves doing patterns over and over again, we're the common denominator. We got to work on us, but we do get an opportunity to heal through relationships. Okay. So, and look at trauma bonds. If you're not familiar with that, there's another book called The Betrayal Bond. That is a great one. What I used to do on a pattern in my dating is I would find out really quick. I would tell everybody my trauma, and then they would tell me theirs, and we would bond over it and would feel like, oh, they get me, and I feel so good, and I feel seen. But really what we're doing is bonding over trauma. And that's not the healthiest way to go. So really witness when you're doing that. It's good to be vulnerable. It's good to be sharing, but don't trauma bond. So if you're not sure if you are or not, the book called The Betrayal Bond is a really good book for that. Okay, and then we're going to look into the T, temporary versus time. If we are recovering people pleasers, codependents, and all that, we tend to go, this person is attracted to me. I like them. They like me. Oh, yay, we're good. We're going to get committed right away before we even get to know them. You really don't start to see mass come down till 90 days, and then 6 months, a year, and 2 years. Both of my marriages, I didn't know till my wedding night. They both changed. My first wedding night, he actually left me at the reception hall to go lock himself up and do drugs with his friends that he never did before our wedding night, that in front of me or that I knew of. And then the next morning, he didn't know where he was. He woke up and said, "Where am I?" I'm like, "Well, you're now my husband." Awesome. And then the second one on our honeymoon saw the shift and change. So masks don't always come down until further down the road. So we have to be in that place of witnessing and observing, right? But the book, How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk. This one has a great talking about RAM, which is relationship attachment model. And it really talks about how if you think of a, let's see if I can find it, of like a radio, oh, here we go, like a soundboard. Do you see that? So we have to take the time to get to know somebody. And that's like asking deep questions and getting to know them, not making assumptions, like really looking at the 4 agreements. And then we have to build trust over time. And then we have to rely on them. And then they can get to show up as a partner and show things. And then we commit. And then physical intimacy. Now people will put pushback on that, like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can wait 90 days before I'm physically intimate. Absolutely. I get it. And I don't know if I could either. So I'm like not here to like judge anybody on what their intimacy, but what I'll challenge is it takes men, they don't fall in love till at least 90 days or beyond. Most women fall in love much quicker, especially when we get physically intimate. Now, will it mean that they won't fall in love with you? Because, there's a lot of that like Christian, you don't do it this way because they'll never. No, I think it just prolongs that. That's just my personal opinion, but I'm not in judgment of it. And I'll just share transparency. Like I had a FWB when I was single over the past year. While I was dating, I wasn't physically intimate with anybody else, but that is what I did. So you find what works for you. But if you're finding yourself becoming attached to people that are toxic, that are not healthy for you, and you create stories, then you might have to like pull yourself and be mindful and go, okay, what part am I playing in this? And then how am I showing up? Right. So that book, How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk, is really good and has lots of good guidelines on how to find out and know somebody, right? And not rush it. Like, I get it if you are in a place that you have the childbearing years and you're like, oh my gosh, that time frame. But if you're not in that place, my encouragement is don't rush it. What's the hurry? What is the hurry? A lot of us put this timeline, and the world tells us that we need to be certain things at certain times. Like, okay, you've been dating this amount of time, it should be a commitment. You've been dating, you've made the commitment. Okay, you should be looking for marriage. Okay, for marriage, then you as soon as you get married, when are you having a baby? Like, there's these time pressures that it really check in with yourself. But is that what I need? Is that what I want? Is that what I desire? Like, before you start dating, really go, what do I want? Do I want a long-term relationship? Do I, what do I want? How do I honor myself? not what the world tells me I need, but really tap into that. Do I just want to date to have fun? Do I want to date so I can learn to grow, because we grow through relationships? Do I want to date because I need financial security? Those are conversations you need to have with the person that you're connecting with, right? Because if their goals aren't the same, then you're wasting your time, and then you can filter fast. So this other mantra that I think is really important for us to that I share with my clients is, and write this one down, is my well-being means more than any outcome. So if you're losing sleep over somebody and you're not in a committed relationship, check in and go, why is that? What is it that is not going on in my body? Be clear, be kind, have those conversations. Conflict isn't bad if we have good communication skills and have healthy boundaries. We can grow through them. A lot of us are conflict avoiders. Anybody here a conflict avoider? Right? That doesn't help relationships. If you're in a relationship, you're like, we never fight, it never happens. It may not be the healthiest relationship. It's okay to have conflict. Now, how we handle it is different, right? So then we're going to go into the H, heartbroken into healthy. And so a lot of what we're talking about here, all these, conflict avoider, a lot of us are. And it doesn't help. It actually creates more problems and more conflict that is actually less manageable the more we avoid it. If we can have these conversations, and whenever I have like this conflict, I go back to that mantra. My well-being means more than any outcome. And if I can do that, and then I go in this mindset of clarity is kind, because if I can share what I need, if I can share what my issues are, if I can vocalize that, that is kind to my partner, even if they don't receive it well. It is the most kind, because what we have done, a lot of us, is we've enabled behavior and it's toxic. And then we wake up one day and we're like, oh my gosh, I've been abused. This is awful. I can't believe I got there. It's because it's collected pebbles over time, because we haven't stood up for ourselves and given ourselves a voice. And it's okay to have a voice in dating. It's necessary for us to share what our needs are, what our wants are, what our desires are, and having those conversations. So we're going to go from heartbroken to happy. And healthy. How do we do that? We do some of the healing work. We be open to the idea that some of us need to do a lot more healing work before we date. Some of us really need to do that, and that's okay. Some of us have done some of the healing work and we're ready to date, and then maybe it's just dating for fun. So then you get practice and you figure out what feels good. What is your type? If you're like, I've been groundhogging all this time, I don't even know what my type is anymore. Good. Go date lots of different people. If short ones, fat ones, tall ones, skinny ones, doesn't matter. The guy that is the blue collar worker versus the white collar worker, somebody that doesn't have a college degree versus someone that does, go date a lot of different people. Find out what you like. It's like going to the buffet. And I don't mean that in a derogatory place, but don't settle. If it didn't work for you in the past, try something new. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't feel right at first, but go, okay, what is my loss besides now? If you have to get a sitter, I guess I know that that's a financial loss. And then if we have to give up our time, I get that there are some different things, but what do I gain? What can I gain? If we can shift this from this heartbroken, where we're staying in our woundedness, we're staying in our victimhood, or we can go into this healthy version of ourselves and saying, I deserve this. I am worthy of this. I am enough. I love myself. And if they don't choose me, that's okay. I choose me. Next. Filter fast. Thank you for filtering yourself out. You're not my person. You're not my partner. And then you feel more confident when you find that true connection, that true thing that brings you joy, that lights you up. They are out there. I'm going to tell you, I talk to men all the time that are healthy men doing this work. But if we go out and we say, they're not out there, nobody's out there, and we play the victim, we will not attract that divine intervention. We will not attract that. So if we think of Gandhi has a good quote that I'm sure you've heard so many times. Your belief becomes your thoughts. What do you believe about dating right now? And I see it. I see all the negativity. I have a lot of strong beliefs about it, right? What do you believe? And if you believe that, you're going to create it. So what are your beliefs and become your thoughts? Your thoughts become your words. That's what's written a lot of times. Your words become your actions. Our actions will show up that we don't even get online, or we don't put ourselves out there. We're closed off. Your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. So how can we change that? Right? How can we make these changes? Is it overnight? No, I don't think it's overnight, but I think we have to be intentional. We have to start making these shifts. This has been something I've been very intentional about, and I'm grateful to say I'm in the healthiest relationship now because I'm attracting healthy, because I'm showing healthy. Like attracts like. So we have to do the work. So for me, I just share, I do have a course that's launching at the end of the month. I'm not here to sell anything, but if you're in this place of like, I want to date, but I'm not ready, I want to offer this to you. So I have something called B4 Relationship Solution. And I break it down into 4 different pillars. The first one is balance. The first one is like that self-love. Who are you? What do you need? What do you want? Who is this person? Because a lot of us don't even know what that is anymore. We've lost ourselves in these relationships and we don't know who we are. So we get to look at that. And then the next B is breaking these toxic cycles. So we're going to look at these limiting beliefs that are holding us back. Our subconscious doesn't want us to see. Our ego has kept us safe and has kept us from being able to see some of these patterns and beliefs that we have. So we look at that, and we do this in group work. So like you're not alone in it. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, me too. Just like we see here in this group, like me too, I'm here too. Like you're not like terrible because you're having these experiences. We just need to heal them, right? And then the next part is boundaries. We're going to talk about healthy boundaries and communication. Like so many of us have never had that model before. And the last part is that we build the life we want. What do we desire? What do we feel like we deserve now? Because you're a different person than where you were in the beginning. And I'll say the outcomes, 3 of the women got their dream jobs in the middle of my course. So if you're not satisfied with your job, that's part of it. So we're attracting the life and love that we desire in that course. It's a 16-week intensive course. It's a VIP course where I do coaching, group coaching, one-to-one coaching, daily gratitudes, daily connection. It's amazing. So I'm launching the women's and the men's course at the end of this month. So if you want to know more about that, book a call with me, free call to find out more information. The reality is if we don't show up as our best self, we're not going to attract that. And if we're attracting a lot of the same and it's toxic, reframe it. Like, let's look at it. Let's like take a breather and look at what are we doing to attract that, because we are a part of it. And I'm not blaming anybody, because believe me, that was me for many, many, many years. But we have to think outside of the box. We have to be counterintuitive about this if that is something we want. If we're truly happy being single, fantastic. There are people that, that's what they want. Now, I will say one lady in the middle of my course, or at the end of my course, got engaged. The rest of them are dating actively and having multiple dates with healthy men, having healthy boundaries. So we can do this. So those, lots of these resources I'll put in the chat, but I want to open this up to you guys. What other questions that maybe I haven't answered that you want to know about? I know some people talked about like where to find people, where to date. What other questions do you have? Thank you for hanging in here with me. I have many watchers here. What else can I answer for you? Yeah, you will start to attract healthier men. They're out there. They are out there. I promise you. When we reframe it and we look at it a different way, they may not be packaged. And I'll share this personal, like while I'm waiting on questions. The person that I'm with right now on our first date, I was like, I'm not sure if, he was nerdy. I wasn't sure if I was attracted to him. But I'm like, I'm going to give him a chance, right? Like, unless there's major red flags, give people a chance. Not everybody shows up as their best self on the first date. It can be nerve-wracking, right? To give somebody some grace and space as they're navigating that. And we went on a few dates. The second date, he made me laugh. And I was like, oh, and he's good with conversation. And he's showing up consistent. I want somebody that's consistent, that reaches out. So I'm not doing all the work. He plans everything. But he considers my needs. He pays for everything. He shows up. He's generous with his time. He's generous with his talents. He's just like, he noticed that I didn't have light bulbs in a place. And he's like, show me a picture of it. I'll come and put them in. So he shows up in a masculine energy man, but I wouldn't have thought that was it. So I keep getting pleasantly surprised. So don't make assumptions on somebody until you get to know them. Some other things too that I didn't share that I love, And I think these are great for all relationships. So whether you're married or single, or you're in a relationship, this game, it's by Esther Perel, called Where Should We Begin? I highly recommend this to anybody in a relationship, but I have it on hand, and we have played this. They're connection. So connection cards. Bring these out on a date. Who cares? Get to know them in a way that these games ask the questions you want to ask without it coming across defensive, whether it come across critical or feeling like you're like digging in or interview style. Be like, hey, do you mind if we pull a couple of cards and get to know each other? These are great opportunities, like table topics. I mean, there's so many. I keep these on hand. I take pictures of them. I keep them on my phone. Hey, do you want to play a game with me? They ask the questions that you want to know, but you're too scared to ask, and it's in a soft way, and it's less threatening. Let's see. Are these things you knew you wanted? If I'm still scared, like I see those red flags. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think a lot of us do. It's hard for us to trust, because when we talk about like the betrayal that maybe we have experienced in relationships, that's not the only betrayal we experienced. We also betrayed ourselves. And so we have to build that self-trust up. And so some little exercises you can do for yourself is to honor yourself. Like if you're at a date and you don't feel comfortable, like truly, you're like, this person's icky, it's okay to end the date right then. Say, thank you, I appreciate your time. I'm not feeling this. And you can walk away. Honor yourself and your feelings and what's coming up for you. Now, I do have another ebook that's free that I can post in our group too. It's called Flags in Dating. And it talks about what are green flags to look for, what are red flags to look for, yellow flags. And it talks a lot about that. So that might be a helpful resource for you to kind of go, oh, okay, these are the things. Look back at past relationships that were toxic and go, okay, what are some of the red flags I missed? So that way you can build trust in yourself. Don't shame yourself for missing them, because green flag or red flags turn to green flags when it's our normal. Oftentimes it's stuff that we experienced in our childhood that we're repeating. And until we know those cycles, we're not aware of those. And so just be gentle with yourself. And if we notice red flags, like it's okay to call it out, and it's okay to call it quits, like right away. You don't owe anybody anything in that point. So well, anybody that's watching the replay and you're coming back and you have questions that I didn't answer, I really appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to talk about dating outside of the box. I appreciate everybody that is here, that has been here for this whole entire wonderful collection of women that are sharing their experience, strength, and hope with you. And I'm here to serve. So if you want to know more about my one-on-one coaching or my group course, please definitely let me know. I have 4 spots still available, and so I'm really glad to have you here. And but post any questions, because I am so glad to help. Just know that you're not alone. I know it's scary, believe me, but there are healthy men out there. Or if you're into, I know I've been talking about same sex, and so I want to honor that. No matter what sexual orientation, a lot of this still is the same, right? And then I know that there are other relationships too. So I don't want to like discount that by any means. I want to honor that. There's no judgment on what your preference is there. It's all about our own healing work and how we're showing up. So thank you all so much. I appreciate your time. Many blessings, and enjoy the rest of your week.